Hello students, and let us now understand the thyroid gland. We've seen the parotid gland. We've seen I've told you for each gland there are two capsules. One is the true capsule, one is the false capsule. The true capsule is formed by the condensation of the connective tissue around the gland. I've told you this. And how's the false capsule formed? Students, answer this. How's the false capsule formed? It is formed by the Yes, the fascia which encloses the gland, the fascia enclosing the gland. In case of parotid, this was formed by the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. In case of thyroid, the false capsule is formed by the pretracheal fascia, pretracheal fascia. So true capsule for the thyroid gland also would be formed by the condensation of the connective tissue around the gland. The false capsule would be formed by, yes, the pretracheal fascia, pretracheal fascia. Let me just tell you about this gland, students. Have a look at this. Sorry. Have a look at this. So that's how the gland looks. I made a small model for you like this. So gland is like a pyramid. It's the apex which is pointing upwards here. You can see here, this is the apex and this is the base here. Now, where is the apex attached to? The apex is attached to the thyroid cartilage. On the thyroid cartilage, we've got a oblique line. We've got a line on the thyroid cartilage, oblique line. The apex is attached to this thyroid cartilage. The base goes to the fifth tracheal rings. We've got the tracheal rings. So the base goes to the fifth tracheal rings, right? Apex is attached to the thyroid cartilage. The base goes to the fifth tracheal rings. Clear? Now, this is one lobe. This is one lobe of the thyroid. We've got another lobe, and these two lobes are connected by a connection here. What is this connection known as? The isthmus. Isthmus. So you can imagine this is one lobe. This is one lobe of the thyroid. Here would be the second lobe, and here this is the isthmus. So you get an H-shaped gland. What is this? I'll remove the isthmus for right now. I'll remove the isthmus right now. Okay, I'll keep it in the pocket. So what is this? That's the apex of the gland. The apex of the gland is attached to the thyroid cartilage. The base of the gland goes to the fifth tracheal ring, right? Now this gland will have this surface. What do you call this surface as? This is the medial surface. Medial surface, that's the lateral surface, and there is a surface behind, that's a posterolateral surface. Posterolateral surface. So this gland has got a medial surface here. It has got a lateral surface and a posterolateral surface, right? Same on this side, same on this side, right? So this medial surface would be related to two tubes. If I draw the slide here for you students, look, if I take a section like this, I'm taking a section like this, and I'm drawing the thyroid gland for you. If that's a thyroid gland, the section is taken from the isthmus. Section is taken from the isthmus. So what is this surface of the gland? This surface is the medial surface, this surface is the lateral surface, and this is the posterolateral surface. Posterolateral surface. The medial surface of the thyroid gland is related to two tubes, the trachea and the esophagus. Trachea and the esophagus. And what lies between the trachea and the esophagus? In the tracheoesophageal groove lies a nerve here. What is this nerve? The recurrent laryngeal nerve. Recurrent laryngeal nerve, right? So on the medial surface of the thyroid gland is related to the trachea and the esophagus with the recurrent laryngeal nerve. The posterolateral surface, that's a posterolateral surface. This posterolateral surface would be related to something here like this. What is this? This is the carotid sheath, and we know this carotid sheath contains the internal carotid artery, internal carotid artery, internal jugular vein, and there's a nerve with it, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, clear? So the posterolateral surface is related to the carotid sheath. The medial surface would be related to the trachea, esophagus with the recurrent laryngeal nerve between them. And this lateral surface would be covered by these muscles. What are these muscles? The strap muscles. Strap muscles. So it will be covered by the sternohyoid, sternothyroid, sternothyroid. Okay, sternohyoid, sternothyroid, and a big muscle here, that's a sternocleidomastoid. Sternohyoid, sternothyroid, and the sternocleidomastoid is also going to cover the thyroid gland. Clear? Also the omohyoid muscle. So the strap muscles basically would cover the lateral surface. The lateral surface would be covered by the strap muscles. Medial surface are related to two tubes. The posterolateral surface would be related to the carotid sheath and the sympathetic chain, right? So what is this border? That's the anterior border of the gland. You have a border here, that's a posterior border of the gland. So we have got an anterior border, we have got a posterior border for the gland. Now, if you see the isthmus is something like this, which is connecting the two lobes. The isthmus will have an anterior surface, it will have a posterior surface, it will have a superior border, inferior border. The posterior surface is related to the trachea. The anterior surface would be covered by the strap muscles. Again, the strap muscles, there's a superior border and inferior border for the isthmus. Clear, students? So this is the thyroid gland. The apex is attached to the oblique line on the thyroid cartilage. Base goes to the fifth tracheal rings. The isthmus is present from second to fourth tracheal rings. Anterior, posterior surface, superior, inferior border. The gland has a medial surface, a lateral surface, and a posterolateral surface. What are the capsules? True capsule, which is formed by the condensation of the connective tissue around the gland. The false capsule is formed by the pretracheal fascia, which is going to enclose the gland. Enclose the gland, right, students? Correct. Now, what is very important is the arterial supply of the gland. Arterial supply of the gland. Let me just make the slide for you. I'll just make the slide of thyroid gland. So that's the apex, that's the anterior border, that's the posterior border, that's the base of the gland. And what's this going to be? That's the isthmus of the gland. Isthmus. Okay, I'll just make it like this for you. Okay, something like this. Fine. Right, so this is the apex. This is the apex, that's the base of the lobe. This is the anterior border of the lobe. This is the posterior border of the lobe. This is the isthmus, that's the superior border, inferior border, right? Now, what are the arteries supplying the thyroid gland? The artery comes from above. This is the superior thyroid artery. The superior thyroid artery is a anterior branch, the first anterior branch of external carotid. We have seen this, correct? So the superior thyroid artery is the first anterior branch of external carotid. It divides into two branches. This is the anterior branch. Okay, that's the anterior branch of superior thyroid artery, runs along the anterior border of the lobe, then goes along the superior border of isthmus, and this is going to anastomose with the opposite anterior branch of superior thyroid artery. So understand one thing, the superior thyroid artery divides into an anterior and a posterior branch. The anterior branch runs along the anterior border of the lobe, then goes on the superior border of isthmus and is going to anastomose with the opposite anterior branch of the superior thyroid artery. That means on the superior border of isthmus, what are we going to get? The anastomosis between the two anterior branches of superior thyroid artery. Okay. Anastomosis between the two anterior branches of superior thyroid artery. Fine. And what is this branch? This is the posterior branch of superior thyroid artery. Now, there's another artery here. What is this? That's a subclavian artery. The subclavian artery gives, it has got three parts. Right, we get the inferior thyroid artery. Inferior thyroid artery, which is a branch of thyrocervical trunk, which is a branch of subclavian artery. So subclavian artery gives the thyrocervical trunk. The thyrocervical trunk gives a branch here. This is the inferior thyroid artery. Inferior thyroid artery. So inferior thyroid artery is a branch of thyrocervical trunk, which is a branch of subclavian artery. The inferior thyroid artery gives many branches here, and one of the branches of inferior thyroid artery is going to anastomose with the posterior branch of the superior thyroid artery. Right? Or the posterior branch of superior thyroid artery is going to anastomose with one of the branches of inferior thyroid artery along the posterior border of the lobe. Posterior border of the lobe. Clear, students? So on the anterior border of the lobe, what artery is present? So anterior branch of superior thyroid artery. Along the posterior border of the lobe, there's an anastomosis between the posterior branch of the superior thyroid artery with one of the branches of inferior thyroid artery. So that's about the arterial supply. On the superior border of isthmus, we get the anastomosis between two anterior branches of superior thyroid artery. Perfect. That's about the blood supply of thyroid, superior and inferior thyroid artery. Which are the veins draining the thyroid gland? The veins draining the thyroid gland are three in number. I'll just make this for you. The superior thyroid vein. Okay, just one moment. The arteries supplying, one is superior thyroid artery, which is a branch of external carotid. Inferior thyroid artery, which is a branch of thyrocervical trunk, a branch of subclavian artery. Sometimes we have got a third artery, thyroid imma artery, which is a branch of arch of aorta, thyroid imma. So may or may not be there. Okay, so this is the arterial supply. Venous drainage of thyroid. One is the superior thyroid vein that drains into the internal jugular vein. Middle thyroid vein. Middle thyroid vein also drains into internal jugular vein. And the last one is inferior thyroid vein. Inferior thyroid vein drains into the left brachiocephalic vein. Drains into the left brachiocephalic. So superior thyroid vein, internal jugular. Middle thyroid drains into internal jugular. The inferior thyroid vein drains into the left brachiocephalic vein. Clear, students, about the thyroid? You are able to understand? Relations are clear, borders are clear, isthmus is clear. Now, there's something else here. Understand, there are two nerves which are very closely related to this arteries, which makes the surgery of this thyroid very important. So, along the superior thyroid artery goes a nerve. That's the external laryngeal nerve. External laryngeal nerve. Okay. Now, this external laryngeal nerve, if I make it like this for you, look at this. The external laryngeal nerve away from the gland, that's the external laryngeal nerve. Away from the gland, it's very close to the artery. It's very close to the artery. And as we come close to the gland, it goes away from the superior thyroid artery. So the external laryngeal nerve away from the gland, they are very close. As you come close to the gland, the external laryngeal nerve goes away from the artery. So where do we cut the superior thyroid artery? We cut it as close to the gland as possible. Clear? So the superior thyroid artery is ligated as close to the gland as possible to prevent injury to the external laryngeal nerve, because the external laryngeal nerve is getting away. Clear? And what is the external laryngeal nerve supply? Cricothyroid. I've told this in the lecture of larynx. And there's a nerve which goes with the inferior thyroid artery. What is this nerve? That's the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Now, recurrent laryngeal nerve, away from the, as we go away from the gland, they are far away. This is the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Away from the gland, they are away from each other. As we come close to the gland, the recurrent laryngeal nerve comes very close to the inferior thyroid artery. So close to the gland, they come close to each other, the inferior thyroid artery and the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So students, where are we going to ligate the inferior thyroid artery? This inferior thyroid artery should be ligated as away from the gland as possible to prevent injury to the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Are you getting this? Clear? So the inferior thyroid artery is ligated as away from the gland as possible. The superior thyroid artery is ligated as close to the gland as possible. Clear? Removal of thyroid gland is known as thyroidectomy. It can be a total thyroidectomy or a partial thyroidectomy. But when we are doing a thyroidectomy, we have to take care to preserve the parathyroid glands. Otherwise, the person will go into tetany. Okay, they secrete calcitonin. So we have to preserve the parathyroid gland. Clear, students? One more thing about the about this thyroid gland. See, this is the gland. Okay, this is the gland here. This is the thyroid gland here. What is this? That's the false capsule. This is the false capsule. What is this? That's a true capsule. True capsule, right? Where is the venous plexus? In case of thyroid, thyroid has got a rich venous supply, rich venous plexus. And this venous plexus lies deep to the true capsule. This venous plexus lies deep to the true capsule. Okay, so venous plexus in case of thyroid, that's a false capsule, that's a true capsule, and that's the venous plexus which lies deep to the true capsule. When we are removing the thyroid gland, we remove the gland along with the true capsule. Okay, so when we are removing this gland, we remove the gland along with the true capsule to prevent hemorrhage from this venous plexus. We remove it with the true capsule to prevent hemorrhage. So in case of thyroid, the true the venous plexus lies deep to the true capsule. Just remember this, students. So we've discussed the thyroid. Enlargement of thyroid gland is known as goiter. Goiter. Clear? So we've discussed the thyroid gland. We have discussed the location of the thyroid gland. We have discussed the lobes of the thyroid gland, apex, base, the medial surface, the lateral surface, and the posterolateral surface. We have discussed the relations of these lobes. We have discussed the relations of the isthmus gland. We have studied the blood supply of the thyroid gland. The two nerves which accompany the arteries, the external laryngeal nerve and the recurrent laryngeal nerve, accompany the corresponding arteries. We have seen the venous drainage of the thyroid gland. The lymphatics of the thyroid drain into the deep cervical lymph nodes, deep cervical. And finally, we have seen where to ligate the arteries during a thyroidectomy and where is the deep plexus, the venous plexus located in case of thyroid. Clear, students? I hope this lecture is clear to all of you. Okay. Is this clear to all of you? Okay. Okay, I hope this lecture is clear to all of you. In case of doubts, do get back to me. Thank you. Thank you.